You're listening to another episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where we're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Still sound a little bit clogged up there, Taylor. You doing all right?
I'm doing all right.
All right. I know last time we talked to you, we were all closed in with all this allergies. Well, today,
Allergies.
a good show, big show. Shawn Miner, school board member. You don't think so? It's a big show. A lot of people have been asking about it. They said,
Go with it.
well, no, they have. No, there's a lot of questions for the school board and all this. I'm sure you get them all the time. And we'll talk about your experiences with the school board, which I'm sure had just been one day at the beach after another. Well, not really. We can talk about all those things. Also, I'm just going to get my everything set up here on the Facebook. That's always an adventure here for me, as Taylor will tell you. I am not particularly adept when it comes to all these various platforms, but whatever. Anyway, but Shawn Miner, you've been serving the board for 12 years now, correct?
I have.
And you seek psychological counseling for that. I mean, that's a long time to be hearing about some things that you might think are somewhat small, but are deadly serious to some people out there in the community, and you have to take them seriously.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's what I've learned over time.
Yeah.
Is, yeah.
I could just imagine, somebody getting all worked up, and then you're just like, wow, you got a lot of time on your hands. But that's the way it is in government, and that's part of the drill. I'm sure you've learned. You have to take them all seriously. But we're going to talk about the security issues of school from this point of view. I spent all last week talking to Dan McClendon, Chris Fletcher, and Ronnie Johnson about all those things. And we're going to talk about from the school point of view and about just the difficulties that would be encountered if certain proposals have been accepted. Mm-hmm. And we talk about the financing of schools because it's very, very difficult. A lot of people think that, you have all this money and can do what you want with it. But how much would you say is already called for by the state of Texas or other entities? About 30, 40%?
Mm-hmm. Large portion, yeah. School finance is one of the most complicated finance systems on earth. I know people that have run fairly large businesses that have tried to understand the school finance model, and it's difficult.
It's nuts is what it is. I mean, they always say every 2 years when legislature comes in session, we're going to revamp, we're going to do it, we're going to take care of the schools, and then they just, do whatever voodoo they do, and you don't understand what's going on. That alone would make it tough to be a school board member, just understanding all of that.
It's difficult.
And well, I'm going to do a first round of sponsors, and then we'll get into the security issues, and we're also going to talk about the COVID response, because that had to be unique in your experience. And whatever else that you, the listeners and my vast listening audience, if you have a question or whatever, throw it on there. But anyway, so thank you to Daniel Basin at CrossFit Gym, CrossFit Burleson on 317 Southwest Wilshire, right behind the Stone Soup and all that shopping strip there. It's a great workout. It's a heavy duty workout. So if you're looking for a serious workout, they have trainers, they have regimens, they have plans, they got the whole thing. So talk to CrossFit Burleson. Then Shandy Stogsdill, the Stogsdill Group. She's selling the real estate, and that's another thing that relates to schools is property values. I bet one of the biggest questions you get is about property values and taxations and things of that nature. But anyway, Stogsdill Group, Shandy will help you. This place is still booming, and if you need an expert guide to get you through all of this, to find out where the homes are, because they don't often are sold before they even are listed. So there you are. Also, Rex Russell over at the Russell Wealth Group. Hit myfinancialbox.com, hit the link, get to know him, get to see what he got to offer, see what he has to tell you about the stock markets, which are going up and down, and just, need somebody there with an expert hand on that. So check out the link and see what you got. Also, thank you to Southern Gym. Have you taken Michelle up here to Southern Gym?
I have not.
Well, if you do, you
boy.
bet. Yeah. If she likes jewelry, like a lot of women do, and some men, it's got the whole thing, men and women's jewelry. But my wife works there this summer, and she comes back and says, "Oh, there's so many lovely things." I'm like, we are trying to make money for you working there. But anyway, Southern Gym is on the top of the Windmiller building. She can do repairs, she can do cleaning, she can do design, and she could do appraisals, she could do the whole thing. Plus, she has really nice inventory.
Is that Gayla?
Gayla Morris.
Okay.
You know Gayla Morris.
I do know Gayla Morris.
Yeah, Gayla Morris. That's exactly right. And she's as sweet as can be. And she really does know her jewelry. My wife has a little bit of experience with jewelry, and she just raves about how much Gayla knows about this. Also, HotWorks. This is an infrared workout system over in 731. They got 11 different programs like Pilates and rowing and aerobics and you name it, and it's all done infrared, so it maximizes the workout without all the physical stress. And I've talked to many people that have done this workout over at HotWorks, and they just rave about it. They think it's great because they can get a full-on workout in about half the time. All right. Also, Creative Concepts by Mandy. She made. I forgot to bring my swag. Taylor, do we still have a cup back there? Oh, good. Oh, yeah. Here you go. Thank you, Taylor. Mr. Allard's Neighborhood hat and cup. And if you wear that around town, you'll be elected in the landslide. But who knows? But anyway, she made all this, and it's really high quality stuff. And she does a lot of stuff for this networking group I'm in, B&I, which we meet every Wednesday. And Gayla and HotWorks, Michelle Humphrey is on there as well. Okay, so let's talk about the big thing, the security issue. Now, a couple of weeks ago, it kind of came out of nowhere, at least in my view, that a couple of members of the city council want to revamp the system. And that must have caught y'all by surprise too, because that's not normally how this works, is it?
No. Yeah, I mean, it was a little surprising to hear the conversation take place in that format. And yeah, it did catch us, or me anyway. I'm not going to speak for the rest of the board, but it did catch me a little bit off guard. I will speak for myself, and I think this is a sentiment that would be echoed by not only Dr. Jimerson and his staff, but the other board members. There's tremendous value in our SRO program. I can take you back probably decades, and you think about Officer Jack Goldman,
right,
and the impact he had on Burleson High School, Officer Mike Alley and the impact he had on Burleson High School, Officer Schaefer at Centennial.
Right, my wife
High
really
School,
has a great deal of regard for him.
Officer Schumacher at Hughes Middle School.
Jerry Stringer was there for a while.
Yes, and it's it's so much more than what you would think of an SRO on a campus as. I mean, it's a presence. There's no doubt about it. But these officers truly become ingrained in the culture and the community, and they make an impact on kids' lives in ways that on a day-to-day basis that we just don't think of. It's all about protecting the public, but also protecting some of the most valuable members of that public.
Well, one of the controversial aspects of this proposal was that basically the city's participation in this would be withdrawn and to be totally on the school system. And I think we saw in Uvalde how dangerous that could be. And just from a security standpoint, I can't imagine anything other than an SRO being a Burleson police officer as opposed to either hired security or was suggested on other platforms and that they don't even have to be peace officers, they can be volunteers, and that just doesn't make any sense. As a school board member and a parent of school, you still have a daughter in the system, right?
No.
Oh, what, she already graduated?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all three of them are graduated?
All three of them are graduated.
Okay, but but still, as a parent in the system, you want the very, very best that we can offer. And I can't imagine anything better than Burleson Police, trained and equipped by Billy Cordell and his crew. What would you think about a private security force or a school district police force like Mansfield has?
Yeah. So, and first of all, Brad, I'll tell you that Chief Cordell and his team have been the best partners you could possibly ask for.
Sure.
In the training that they do is intense, and have all the faith in the world in their ability to protect our students. Having conversations about other forms of protection and security outside of the SROs, there's a lot of questions there that I would have to ask about startups and funding and how do the departments work together, and more questions than answers for me in that light. And I understand, because trust me, this topic is a tough one for me because I know as a parent, that's the one phone call I never wanted from my kids at school.
Right.
To have that going on in the background and have to know that my child was in that position. So I think every time we have a new incident, we learn more about what needs to be done. And I don't know that there is one single answer. I think there's a multitude of answers that we all learn coming out of every single one of these tragedies. I sat in a pretty good session a couple weeks ago, and the session was all around how we rethink the design of schools. And it's no longer from an architect's perspective, it's from a first responder's perspective, and how many layers of interference can we put in between the good guys and the bad guys. And architects love natural light, but natural light can be one of the most dangerous things that we put in the path of our little ones, because it provides direct line of sight into a building. So how do we compromise and still provide natural light, but maybe start at 7 feet up so that we eliminate direct line of sight into buildings? That was just one of many, many things. And I think ultimately technology is going to catch up and help with some of these situations as well. But I think there's a multitude of answers. And I will tell you, in Burleson specifically, we have a group of parents that, as you can imagine, are extremely concerned and came to the last board meeting and the last 2 board meetings actually, and expressed their concerns, and a great deal of them spoke. And I got to tell you, spending time with them after that meeting, those are people we can partner with, because I think it's a group effort. I think it's truly a scenario where it takes a village. It takes parents being actively involved. It takes board and administration. It takes our council, our mayor, our police department. I think we all have to be on the same page.
Well, I spent my last 2 years under Dr. Jimerson's current administration before I retired, and I got to know him a little bit, and I can only imagine how seriously he takes this issue. And I know the board does, because you're all parents, you're all invested in the system, invested in the community. There's a lot of concerns, and there's a couple of things I need to clarify on my own part as well. I got a bit of an education in the SRO program, and one of my concerns initially was that this private or police force that the schools wouldn't have the authority of SROs. But I had a couple of current and former police officers say, no, they can have authority of an officer, but there is a great deal of duplication involved. And that's still one of my concerns. But I had Cindy McGuire and Todd Hulsey both tell me that no, you can give the police of a district that kind of authority. The question is, do we want to spend that kind of money to duplicate the system? And they were both very, very enthusiastic about Burleson PD being part of that. Second of all, this idea that Burleson police don't train for these things was brought up on another platform, and that's just not true. Because I remember watching one in person. They did suspend it during the COVID situation, but they now resumed them. And I had Billy Cordell sit in that very seat 3 weeks ago and tell me about their training regimen. So, the idea that the BPD doesn't prepare for this is totally false. So I'd like to clarify those things. But let's, even if we go back and forth on the philosophy of having your own school system, the funding has to be a major impediment. How much would it cost? I mean, I don't know if everybody's giving you a dollar figure, but it has to cost a bunch.
No, but just try to get your head around funding your own police department and what the startup cost would be, and then just beyond that, what the day-to-day operating costs would be. But look, here's the thing, and you've said it, and I know that what you said about Dr. Jimerson is accurate. Our main priority is the safety of our students, so we're going to do what needs to be done. But I think at the same time, we all have to take a step back and think about what is the best way to approach how we do it. And I'm a big fan of the way we do it today.
I am too, and for a lot of reasons. But the money, I don't think people understand the difficulties the school systems are facing financially. Because they think they get all this money. My taxes are so high, you must have tons of money. And what they don't realize is just how much is already called for by the state or the feds. And you don't have the latitude just to, have to be a couple of $1 million to the line item budget, right? And that kind of thing. And I just we'll talk about financing in a little bit because I bet that comes up as much as anything else when you're talking to the community about the school system. But kind of on the last word on the security system, no security system is going to be perfect, but you want those guys there be within 10, 15 seconds or something like that. You know, all the entrances that go into Centennial or BHS or these elementary schools, I mean, you can't just have one exit because of fire concerns. But it just, we have a good system. In my experience, only twice did we really have a legitimate, real lockdown, and it had nothing to do with something happened on campus. It had to do with a crime being committed nearby, like in a housing community right next to us. And then there was a attempted robbery at that Shell station down for BHS, and they locked us all down for 3 hours, and the whole thing shut down so the perpetrator couldn't use the school to hide in. And I mean, that's the kind of thing you want, is that kind of rapid response.
Yeah, and I think there's two things. First of all, we have to eliminate complacency now when it comes to school security. We cannot be. I think you've already proved to us that that can show up at any time. Can
you imagine those poor parents though? They send their kids to school just another day, and then 2 or 3 hours later, all this happens.
Yes,
and then the failure of that system. That's just amazing. But let's move on to something more pleasant than that. Sarah Carlson's asking, what is something that's going on with BISD that you're excited about?
Oh man,
there's a lot of good things going on.
Yeah. There's a lot of great things going on within the Burleson ISD. I think the choices in education now that we've expanded now with 7 schools of choice. STEAM Middle School, Academy of the Arts at Branson, Academy of Leadership and Technology at Mound, STEAM Academy at Stribling, the Game Development and Design School. If you have not made a stop by there, it's in the old Venue 510 building.
Okay.
We were able to acquire that building, and that is a first-class facility and a tremendous amount of interest from the kids and wanting more of that curriculum. Burleson Collegiate High School.
Were you on the board when this was initiated?
I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the things I liked most about Jimerson, and this is kind of going back in history, it was that before, he took over for Mr. Crummell.
Correct.
Who was, basically there for a couple of years to kind of steady the ship, and we don't need to get back into the history of all that. But one of the things Jimerson brought with him was a very strong commitment to dual enrollment classes. He revived the whole system, saved the system. And then now with this early college prep program, wow, wouldn't it have been nice when we were kids to walk out of high school with a couple of years of college behind you? The savings on that must be tremendous.
Yeah.
And then he put the Burleson Opportunity Fund with that too. But so I could just imagine how excited y'all were when Jimerson proposed this.
Yeah. And again, kids walk out the door with an associate's degree in hand. It's been a great partnership with Hill College, and now the other thing is the higher ed facility that's going in. You'll see the construction when you drive down Johnson, the changes that are taking place to the old Kerr, the old Burleson High School.
I'll be teaching there. I still teach at Hill as an adjunct, and that's what they said we're moving to whenever that's finished.
Great partnership with the city there, and we'll have Hill College, we'll have Texas Tech in there, and there's a great teacher program that we're spinning up with Texas Tech. So just a lot of exciting things going on, and not to mention the growth in career and technology. We've added a construction vertical in addition to the fire academy and all the other things that we have, because one of the things that Brett has said since he got here is, and this sticks with me because I was this kind of student. You hear a lot about you've got to have more rigor in education. Public education needs to be more rigorous. But you can't have rigor if it's not relevant content. The content has to be relevant to the person taking it in. Right? And in other words, meet kids where they're at. And the things that we've been able to do, and again, I'll use the Game Design Academy as one of them. When that becomes school every day, for a lot of these kids that just sit in a traditional classroom and they might be on a higher learning level or a lower, they're just disengaged. And now you put them in that environment and man, the engagement goes sky high and the performance follows.
That was always a goal of mine to make my whatever I'm teaching, history, government, whatever, relevant to the students, and that's not often met. I mean, it's a juggling act quite a bit, because you got kids that may be very skilled in some trade that are going to make more money than a teacher, so they're thinking, why am I worried about this? So you have to make it relevant, and I think BSD has done a great deal of that in the last decade or so.
Yes.
Tremendously. I mean, the amount of stuff they offer kids is much more expanded than when I started at BISD in 1988, and then went to the high school 2 years later. I mean, we offered, AP and all this other business and some of the trades, but now, my goodness. Mm-hmm. And I think it's done tremendous work in keeping kids active in their own education, which is the key.
I agree.
Rather than being a passive learner, they're, even in those areas in which they're not 100% interested in, they see that as a path to where they want to go. And I think BSD has done a great deal of that. Now, as far as other programs, not every program we've done has been for, the excelled students. It's for those that really are in trades that we need. And I really like that quite a bit.
Tremendous focus by this board and Dr. Jimerson on taking serious the commitment to college and career ready, because it's both, and you have to prep for both. I take a look at my own household. 3 kids graduate from high school. 2 of them, college was just not going to be their thing. Both of them have careers. One of them in commercial real estate construction. The other one is a lineman pulling fiber optic cable all day, every day. And then my daughter was college bound. She'll enter her junior year at Tarleton State University this year. But there was plenty there to prep them for whichever fork in the road they decided to take. And I can't stress the importance of that, and because college is not for everybody,
right.
And to provide them that path of a good start into a field when they exit. To your point, Brad, a lot of them can go on and get higher paying jobs.
You betcha,
right? Than these 2 knuckleheads sitting here at this table.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's a good thing about the educational system here is that. Everybody gets worked up about getting these kids into college, and I teach college, and I endorse it and all that. But you're right; not everybody needs to go and learn about Shakespeare in college. We need guys that, when I need something fixed, I want the guy who knows how to fix it. If you're hiring people to do a job like your son has with the, putting on optic fiber, you want somebody who knows how to do it, and knows how to work, and show up on time, and just all those things like that, And I think BSD has done a really good job with that particularly, I really think the school's improved since I've been there. It's always been a good school system. The first thing I noticed about the school system when I joined, particularly high school, was the talented and gifted programs, and also the special ed programs. They've always had those well in hand, but now we've encompassed all these other things. Yeah. And I guess you deserve some credit for that, don't you?
Well, I think the whole board does, and Dr. Jimerson as a whole, right? When Brett came here, the situation that we were facing as a community and as a school district is we were growing rapidly, and we didn't have the capacity to add the facilities that we needed to add. So we had junior highs that were way overcrowded,
got that right.
with an enrollment that was busting at the seams, and it how do we address it without the capacity to call a new bond, because we were coming off of 2008 when we built Centennial and some new elementaries. And Brett took a very creative and unique approach. If you look at the old Fraser campus that we repurposed to STEAM, and just adding some of the early collegiate high school and some alternatives for our kids, it created new opportunities for our kids and relieved some of the pressure, from some of the overcrowding on the campuses that we had. So we've thrown a lot of things against the wall, and we've been all in from the get-go, but I think we're starting to see the payback and the results, and it's exciting. This is a great place to be.
Well, I think so, because the reason why Shandy will tell you that the people are moving here in such big numbers is good police force, good schools, and those are indispensable. And so we have people, and I know I've met them all through my career. They said, well, we moved from, some other community because we heard how well y'all do your schools, how good the education is here, and that the schools are, pretty safe and all this other stuff. I mean, and so it's a great compliment to y'all to keep the quality moving forward. And I'm sure that's quite the burden, though. I mean, it's because you got all these challenges, and at the other side of the commercial break here, so to speak, I want to ask about one of our biggest challenges, and that's during the COVID era, and how we try to maintain some semblance of sanity and education during that time, and kind of you can lead us through the whole thought processes. But let's just run through these real quick. Our place, Otto is going to be on tomorrow. We're going to talk about how difficult it is to run a business in this inflationary period. And I guess inflation happens to a school system as well, because all your costs are going up. And all his costs are going up. We're going to talk all about running a restaurant in this period. I bet you all have gone to our place before. Everybody's gone to our place.
Just about every Saturday morning.
Yeah, the pancakes. I get the chicken fried steak. If I'm having lunch there, I go there about every other Thursday with some men from Sunday school, and we get all sorts of stuff. It's a good place. Our place. Also, Wild Cigar and Culture. Have you been over there before?
I'm not.
Are you a cigar smoker?
I am not.
Well, if you're not, and you want to try one, they got tobacconists. They'll help you. What kind of experience do you want? Because not all tobacco, not all cigars are even remotely the same. And it's a good place to get a drink. It's a good place to talk about business. It's quiet. They got jazz music in the background as opposed to high level decibel rap or whatever. But it's not a sports bar. So Wild Cigar over on the Standard. Also, Local Life. Also at the Standard. Tiffany is enjoying her vacation and making us all very jealous. Hawaii, California, all this other business. But she'll be back soon. Talk about the latest issues of Local Life. So they go to 30,000 homes and over 110,000 people, and they're expanding every month. And so check out Local Life. And if you don't have the magazine in hand, you can look at locallifetx.com, and there you are. Now, as far as 2 or 3 years ago, you are confronted with something that I don't think anybody really ever considered when you became a board member or involved in schools. That was COVID, of course. Can you tell us what it was like when Dr. Jimerson's come to y'all saying we may have to shut the schools down?
Yeah, so my family and I, every year on spring break in March, we head up to Durango, Colorado. It's just what we do. We took the drive up on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. We got there Saturday evening, and things were starting to get weird. By Sunday morning, the mountain was closed. The whole state of Colorado was closing down. The ripple effect was insane. The drive home was apocalyptic. Gas stations and restaurants that we had hit on the way up were no longer an option. We were just happy to get fuel at the pump. And then, we came back into really a lot of unknowns. And I think that was the biggest challenge for most of us, is this was something we had never been a part of before. So there was no vaccine. There were no good answers. There were so many unknowns about how it's contracted, how it's transmitted, how you clean, how you prep, how many days does a kid need to be away from school, and then the whole mask conversation spun up. And how much good does the mask do? Opinions formed all over the place.
I'm sure the internet was a great deal of help.
It was, yeah. So we're stuck in the middle, just trying to make the best decisions for kids. Mm-hmm. And I think where we were lucky, not lucky but blessed, is those relationships that we had with our city leaders, our first responders, and our medical community. Hughley was a massive help to us, just trying to transcribe the information that was coming fast and furious. The city of Burleson hired their own physician, so we got a lot of direction there. And then, of course, there was federal and state and local mandates coming at us left and right. So, again, a lot of time spent just trying to filter the information and make the best decision possible for our kids. And trust me, that's one of those scenarios where you truly got to think about the greater good, because if you're trying to appease everybody in that situation, it's an impossibility.
Did you get a lot of static from some people about your decision making?
Yeah, sure, absolutely, and I completely understand it, because it's a black and white argument for most people. There's not a lot of gray in that conversation. So I never have a problem with people being passionate about their argument. I want that. That's what we do as board members. There's 7 of us there, and if you're passionate about your argument, make your argument. And at the end of the day, the vote happens, and then you support whichever direction it goes. But I don't have an issue with people being passionate over a direction, especially when it comes to their kids, right? Because the whole reason I ended up on this board is because I wanted to be an advocate for my kids. I had 2 boys that were 504. Michelle and I were not the only advocates, but the biggest advocates they could have.
Sure, of course.
So I don't take issue with people advocating for their kids. As a matter of fact, it's a big part of why I do what I do. Because I want to help.
Right.
I want to help. I want to help you navigate that, because we learned the hard way how to navigate 504 and get your kids the modification and the help and the IDPs and all the things that they need. That's a scary road as a parent. And at the end of the day, you just want what's best for your kid. And I truly think at the end of it, that's what we were trying to do. Did we get it 100% right? Probably not. Depends on who you talk to, but I have 100% confidence that we made the decisions that we thought were in the best interest of our kids.
Well, I have no doubt that you made the best decisions with the information you had. And it seems like every time you turn on the TV, Mr. Fauci, Dr. Fauci was saying, oh, by the way, this is a new wrinkle. We get another report on the news about, well, there's been doubt cast upon this method and blah, blah, blah. So you're just constantly being jerked back and forth, basically, by the media about what to do in this. And I thought y'all did as well as could possibly be done. And I say that not just as a former teacher, but my wife still at Centennial, and she was affected by this, definitely. And I think they handled it, considering you were flying without any instructions about how to handle this. I thought it did well.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know that there are concerns, but there was not going to be any painless resolution. There wasn't going to be, well, we'll just do this instead and everything will be fine. And we still deal with the aftermath. I mean, there's a lot of remediation of students that has to go on. And that's another burden the school district has to pull up.
Yeah.
But
another unfunded mandate.
Unfunded mandate. But I'm just saying that the people that I talked to, particularly the reasonable ones, were like, God help them. We were thinking about this board and Dr. Jimerson and his staff. I think, God help them, because I don't know what I'd do. I don't know what else they can do. And so y'all did well. And I think this is the value of having experienced board members, because if you have, people that don't have a long-term connection to the system, it could be a real problem.
Right.
Or they may be, going off half-cocked, whereas it seemed to me, from my vantage point, that y'all had it as well in hand as possible. And I had a lot of confidence in Jimerson, had a lot of confidence in the board. And as a citizen, I appreciate that. I appreciate how you handled it. Now, as far as the funding issue, I'd like to talk about that, because
Sure.
a lot of people don't really understand all these things about funding. But it isn't as if y'all can just, with the wave of your hand, increase your revenue. I think people think all y'all can do, we'll just raise taxes a little bit and we'll make more money. That's not it at all. Y'all are very restricted in how y'all handle increases in revenue, are you not?
We are, and especially in this climate that we're in, this real estate market that we're in, that's an easy assumption to make, is property values are going up, therefore you're getting more money, and that's not the reality because of the way the money's distributed within the school system. So a lot of that money gets clawed back from us, and trust me, the formulas are so complicated, we don't have time to get into that here. But I will tell you, Brenda Mize, our CFO, and her team have done an amazing job. 19 consecutive years, we've received the highest rating possible in the financial integrity rating system. And that's all about budget acumen, fiscal efficiencies, management of personnel, and credit to this board and Dr. Jimerson, because we've been hyper conservative with a lot of the funds. I'll use oil and gas as an example. A lot of that money gets shifted over into a capital projects fund. So when we do things like STEAM, we pay cash for that. When we do things like Venue 510, we pay cash for that. That's not a bond where we're putting more debt on the books and more burden on the taxpayers. So it's tough. It's a fine line to walk, but Brenda has us in a situation where we're running almost $100 million operating budget, and without really knowing, so we're building a budget without really knowing what the revenues are going to be.
Right.
And it's amazing how close Brenda and team get us each and every year to meeting that budget almost right on time.
The only time I remember the budgets really being an issue is back when the economy was hitting the skids about 12 years ago, and there were some very difficult decisions that were having to be made.
That was tough.
Yeah.
That was right at 2010 when I came on
Right.
the board, and one of the first decisions I had to make was to eliminate the school crossing guards.
Oh boy,
My dad was a school crossing guard,
right?
so I eliminated my father's position on my first 30 days on the board. But yeah, those were tough conversations, and we learned a lot from those conversations. And again, I think the board took a new approach, and for the last 12 years, we've put ourselves in a position where we're on pretty solid footing. We've got 3 months worth of operating expenses. We keep in reserves, and we try to be as good stewards of that money as possible, and transparent at the same time. So we're an open book when it comes to the checkbook.
Well, this again is the value of experience. You have a new on the board with experience to go through these things, so you can go back and say, well, this is what we did back then. Historical memory, institutional memory, I think is what they call it. That's a real valuable asset. And also, and when you get down to cutting this thing, I remember what Mr. Crummell had put forward was 3 tiers of cuts, and that third tier was catastrophic. I mean, we're talking about just the 4 basic classes and bring your own lunch practically, and that kind of thing. And I'm sure when y'all get in these kind of conversations, I mean, there are programs that are near and dear to your heart as individual board members, but you're going to have to set some of that aside, compromise, in other words, with your fellow board members to come to the best conclusion. You can't have people with agendas. And that's what I've seen with the board is that they put aside and think of BISD as opposed to my personal pet project. Because you said yourself, you laid your dad off. That's
Right.
So I'm just saying that's what I've seen with the board for quite some time is the ability to say, okay, I really, really like this program, but I want the bigger success for the district. And so, y'all don't seem to be pursuing separate agendas.
It is a very cohesive board. We're fortunate in a couple ways. It's a very diverse board from a background perspective, but at the same time, it's a cohesive board. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of passionate conversations that take place, but
it's behind closed doors, isn't it?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's we're all on the same page as what our intent is.
Well, I mean, you do it in executive sessions or probably work sessions. You don't have all these tantrums out in public.
A lot of planning that goes into building the budget for the BISD, I can tell you that. A lot of people just see the night that it's on the agenda and it gets approved, but there's a lot of work that leads up to that. And we give Brenda a hard time because typically on our agenda, when we get the financials, that's when the room clears. Everybody that showed up for recognition to see their student recognized, that's when they choose to go home. And I'll be honest with you, I don't blame them.
Well, it's a lot of detail.
It is a lot of detail, but it's a lot of important detail. And that's why I feel an obligation to the people that elected me to sit in this seat to be a part of those conversations on their behalf. So you leave and go have dinner with your family. I'll take this one. And if there's anything relevant, I just trust that I'll make the best decision on behalf of you and others.
Well, I've known many of the board members for quite some time, and I have a lot of regard and respect for them. And I appreciate what they do for the community because you can tell us there's a lot of time involved. I'm sure time away from your family, time away from your job, time away from maybe summer plans that you would have liked to have pursued, but we got these important meetings coming up. And that I think a lot of people don't realize that. They think you just show up on Monday night and say, sure, why not, and whatever. And I'm sure there's a ton of time outside of those board meetings that you have to spend just to be prepared for them.
Sure.
And I don't think everybody is aware of that. You know, they just think it's, Jimerson tells you this, you say sure, and you move on. That's not it at all.
No. Brad, my dad, like every other dad, always told me, leave it better than you found it, right? So I'm a byproduct of BISD, Mound Elementary, Hughes Middle School, Burleson High School. My wife, the same. We put three kids through the district, and it's my time to give back to my community, and I'm not alone on that board in that scenario. There's others that are in the same scenario. So it's a passion for what we do. I like I said, I got involved to be an advocate for my kids, and then I found myself advocating on behalf of other families and other kids. And it's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure to get to do it.
Well, I'm sure there are times when you think I must have been crazy for doing this, but most of your interactions with Burleson Public pretty cordial.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. And that's one thing you'll hear people. I just talked to a lady at the grocery store the other day that just moved to Burleson from Arizona. And she said, you know what? My favorite part about this place, the people. And that's what you hear. Because at its core, Burleson is still a great place.
Well, yeah. And my position here in this podcast, I've met a ton of people that are doing all these nonprofits or service projects or serve the community in elected and appointed positions. I mean, we're fortunate that we have the wealth of citizens that are going to support this whole community, this endeavor, because schools are a community effort. Absolutely, the idea that I don't have any kids in school, so it doesn't affect me is total rubbish. I mean, you are highly affected by the quality of schools, even if you have no children in the system. The quality of your property values, quality of your economic situation. Businesses aren't going to move into here with a crappy school system. And so I always get a little bit churned when people say, well, why are my taxes X? Because I don't have any kids. I'm like, you nickelhead.
Yeah.
The value of your taxes may be higher here because there's a reason. Because the quality of the lifestyle and quality of the situation that the school system is a major, major factor in. And I'm sure you feel that responsibility.
I do.
And it's, how do you kind of decompress from that? I mean, what do you do I'm sure there's sometimes very stressful. What do you do to try to relieve the stress on these things?
Well, I got to tell you, my wife and I we celebrated 26 years of marriage this last week, and we are in this really cool window right now where there's no kids living in my house. Oh,
yeah.
And there's no grandkids, so we're just taking advantage of, trying to travel as much as we can and just, reconnect on a different level. And we spend a lot of time in the backyard pool that used to be occupied by kids jumping off the diving board and sliding down the slide. And now it's just two old people floating back there watching the Ranger game, maybe on the TV.
That's a good deal.
Yeah. But yeah, we try to get away and decompress as much as we can. And we love, look, one thing that's beautiful about this Burleson versus the Burleson I grew up in, I don't have to leave Burleson to get anything I want. Sure. I love visiting all of our local, restaurants and hangouts. And we spend a lot of time doing that because we don't cook much now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I bet.
But it is important.
You still golf?
I still golf. Yeah,
there's a story about you golfing that you probably don't remember, but this is about, 20 years ago. We're playing some sort of scramble four at First Baptist or raising money for something. I think, and it was over at that course. I think it's in Alito. It's a cowboy motif and all this other stuff, has wagons and stuff.
Canyon West.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Canyon West.
And I was in the foursome in front of you.
Okay.
Not that I was helping my foursome much. And we were one stroke ahead of you. All right, and going to the 18th hole, and we birdied. And so you were going to have to eagle to tie us, and we wanted that gift certificate from, whatever it was. And you were about 150 yards out, and I said, nah, he's going to have to hole out from there to tie us. And you came within about 6 inches of the cup. I'm watching the ball hit and roll. And I said, of course, this has to happen. Of course, Minor did it to us again. And it missed. It just came short, about 6 inches. So we ended up getting a gift card from, I think, Spring Creek Barbecue or something like that. But I just saw that ball rolling. I thought, he's going to do it to us again.
Well, my dad was not an outdoorsman in the type that he was going to take me fishing or hunting, but my dad played golf every weekend. So if I wanted to spend time with my dad, that's what we did.
Yeah. And, well, I haven't picked up in a club in a while because I got other things going on and all this, but I just wondered if you maintained it. We've had several people that have wished you well. We had, you are in a campaign. Are you going to have yard signs or anything like that?
Yeah, all that is in progress for sure. So we'll more to come on that.
All right, good. Well, you could use this outlet here to, if you want us to, let people know that through the shows and whatever. Just email me, text me, whatever, and we'll put it out there. I know Bill Janish says he wants to sign. I know Sherry Scott said she wanted to sign. I'm sure Sarah Carlson will want to sign.
Sure.
And
I think for now the most important thing to understand, because this one is a little bit off the radar as far as election goes, because it's out of cycle. August 3rd, 5th through the 5th, August 8th through the 12th from 8 to 5, And then August 13th and August 15th and 16th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's all early voting. And then Election Day will be Saturday, August 20th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. All of that voting will take place in the boardroom at the administration building of the BISD there in Burleson.
Now, you're scheduled to be on this show again on the 18th of August.
That's correct.
And so we can talk more about that. We're going to talk more about the funding issues as well, because Betty Arbor also says she would like to have a sign.
Sure.
And, because that really, to talk about the funding issues, I think a lot of people have misunderstandings, and it's a hard topic to talk about. One of the first things I'm going to bring up again on that show is just how much the state of Texas imposes itself on us. If I ever wanted to see a board member's eyes cross and get all angry, I just talk about how wonderful the state of Texas is and schools. Let me tell you how much they make us spend on X, Y, and Z, and how serious they take about misapplication of grants and all this other business. But anyway, so text us this information. If you have any kind of other type of information about your campaign events or whatever else, if you have those, meet and greets and whatever else, just send it information here, and Taylor will throw it up on the board and put it in the ad rotation. I make no bones about it. You are the candidate I want to see win, and my wife and I will be there on Election Day or the early election. And so you have my hope and blessing that you have a very successful campaign.
Well, that's much appreciated, Brad.
Right. You've done great work. You've done great work.
It means a lot. And, again, I do it so that, I tell a lot of people there's a lot of important decisions made late in the night in those rooms. And I don't mind being that guy in the room advocating on behalf of, the community and the people that elected me into that seat.
Well, y'all seem to be pretty cohesive. I'm sure in those executive sessions and work sessions, and it's just the 7 of y'all, and maybe with Jimerson, I can't see it being very acrimonious, but I could see it, being passionate. And but when you come back out, it looks like you're always on the same page of the hymnal. Yeah,
this board's done a lot of great things. We just increased teacher pay for the 8th consecutive year. 4%.
Well, that's pretty good, actually. Yeah. I mean, it's if we can ever get inflation down, but that's not your problem.
we had a big dip about 12 years ago when relative to the area, and this board has been really focused on correcting that curve, and we've had to do it a little bit at a time, but because look, the burden that you talk about, Brad, on unfunded mandates, we don't carry that burden. Our teachers and our staff do.
No, that's true.
And that's not fair, because you know the stories better than I do.
Well,
teachers come out of pocket for a lot of the things that go on in their classroom, and the reality is teachers play a lot of roles these days, beyond just being a classroom teacher.
Well, right, and as far as my experience with the BISD, I mean, there's some days I thought, what in the world are they thinking? But most days were good, and I think back on my experience with BISD very fondly. It was a blessing in my life, and I think the boards that served at the time had a piece of that, because they did what they could in the time and the constraints they had to try to make our jobs possible. Sure, I'd like to, have, pudding with my lunch every day and, or something like that. But realistically, I thought the board did as well as it could with the financial and time constraints given to them. And so I appreciate that. But like I said, if and when you have some meet and greets or some, I don't know, Wild Cigar is a good place to do it, okay. Yeah. Or our place, and have something like that. And if you want to do something like that, let me know. We'll throw it up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Taylor, let's run through the ads real quick, and then we'll let Shawn have the last word, because I like to guess in the shows. Thank you, Daniel, CrossFit Burleson. Thank you for making this possible. I'm sure you're familiar with Mr. Basden and all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, everybody knows Daniel and his father and whatnot. He and Amber are good people, good community people. Thank you to Shandy. She's got a couple of kids in the system. Her daughter, I believe, is at Centennial. I don't know where her younger one is, but her daughter's a junior at Centennial this year, and very, very sweet young lady. So the Shandy Stogstill group, if you want to talk to somebody who knows about real estate, she's certainly the one to do it. Thank you to Rex. He knows his finance. He's been doing that for 35 years or more, so I think he knows what's going on by now. So myfinancialbox.com, hit the link and get to know him, have a little coffee, become a client. Same with Gayla. You got to take Michelle up there. Just you're gonna. She's gonna come out and her eyes are gonna be that big, and she's gonna, ooh, I want this, I want that, I want this. And I'm like, okay, but no, Gayla really knows her stuff. Over in the top of the Windmiller building. So thank you, Gayla. Thank you to Michelle, who also knows her stuff. Now, here's an interesting thing. Michelle Humphrey used to work for a local school district, one north of here, in the Metroplex, as a buyer. And when we were talking about the SROs, she was telling me, as from her perspective, working for a district, the difficulties it would take to create a system like has been suggested, a school-wide district police force. I mean, she said, you don't have any idea how hard it would be just to buy walkie-talkies or whatever else. It's harder than even at the city level because there's so many state requirements. So thank you, Michelle, for not just to Hotworks, for giving us some insight on that kind of thing. Thank you to Mandy. I'll see you Wednesday, I hope. And I thank you for these nice swag gifts. Thank you for the quality of service that you've given to myself and all these BNI people. Thank you to Otto at our place. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. And we talk all about these things, about how running a business and shortages and all this. And one time we were talking, and he said, I can't get straws.
Wow.
And just, you don't think about those things. Another time I was talking to him, he said he couldn't get carrots and lettuce, and you're thinking, how is that hard? But apparently we just go through these shortages. Thank you to Chris over at Wild Cigar and Culture. He's always got something going on, got some deals. So check out his webpage and his Facebook page. They have specials and deals going on certain days of the week, so check that out. And thank you to Local Life. Check out locallifetx.com if you want to see the latest issue, or you can pick it up at a lot of different places. I've seen it in a lot of businesses here in town. This week, also on Thursday, I have Victoria Johnson. We're going to talk again about security issues, but also talk about budget issues as well. Anything? No, I let my guests have the last word. Tell us what you want us to know.
Well, let's flip back to security right quick.
Okay, sure.
There's something called an emergency operations plan that the Texas Education Agency asks of every school district.
Right.
1,022 districts in the state of Texas. Burleson ISD is one of only 67 to have a viable emergency operations plan. We're one of only 200 districts to have a viable active shooter program. So just know, we don't share the whole playbook, but just know that there is a playbook. And we just recently added to Steve Logan's staff, and Steve does a fantastic job in this area, but we added a director of safety and security that'll come on board this year.
Who is that?
That is Mr. Scott Shahay.
Yes, he was watching earlier. Yeah. I heard that. I wanted to get his name out there.
Yeah.
But, Scott and I have worked together for 3 decades practically, or at least a couple of decades, and you picked the right man.
Yep. And then the last thing I would say, and this over time has become the best part of the agenda every time this board meets, and that's the recognition that we do of our students. And man, K through 12, it is amazing what our kids accomplish on a day-to-day basis across, fine arts, athletics, all of it. It is mind-blowing to me as someone who grew up in the system to watch what our kids are achieving on a national level now. It'll blow your mind.
Oh, I've seen the pictures. I understand it's a very dangerous place to be between Dr. Jimerson and the camera. Is that right?
I will agree with you 100% on that.
He loves those pictures. So I like every time somebody wins something, there he is. That's what a superintendent does, and
right.
That's I just kind of pick on him about that a bit. But thank you for coming, and I wish you the best in this election, and I appreciate what you've done. And a lot of people, when I was promoting this on the Facebook and other platforms, they said, tell Shawn that we appreciate what he does.
Well, I appreciate that.
You have a lot of support in this town.
And that means a lot, and that's why I do what I do.
All right.
So thank you, Brad.
Sure. And we'll see you all tomorrow, and we'll see you again in about a month.
Sounds good.
All right, bye-bye.